Hello, Robert.
Hi, good morning. It's morning here. Good evening to you in Melbourne.
Oh, good morning, Dan. I hope I'm recording this. Yes, I can see it now. Okay. And it's hot over there on your side of the world, is it?
It's really hot. We're in the hurricane season now, and it's very humid and sticky. It's about 32 or 3 degrees centigrade, and the humidity is like 90%. So we're sweating.
Wow. We're still cool here, literally, like maybe about 15, 11 actually at the moment. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, all of this gives us a sense of how large the planet really is, because it's Saturday night over there, and here it's Sunday morning, and you're in the middle of winter, and we're in the middle of summer. It's quite interesting, really.
Yeah, we should turn it around from time to time, so we see how it is over there.
That's not funny. The whole thing may be flipping one of these days.
We are upside down anyway here in Australia, so hanging down.
Oh,
down and
right.
down.
I forgot that. You guys are standing on your heads there, right?
Yeah, true. Like I had to turn the screen around so I could talk to you.
And there's kangaroos everywhere, right? In all the streets and the cafes.
Well, they might come out soon because everything is locked down. We are in lockdown at the moment, and we can't go further than 5 kilometers from home. We can go out to work out. That's about it. And yeah, so we are always in lockdowns.
I read that about a week ago. You went back on lockdown.
Yeah, kangaroos must love it. So they come to the city, so they can drink our beer and so it's interesting about time.
Well, we have no lockdown here in Mexico.
Yeah.
And we're doing pretty well here. The government's been good on getting the vaccines out to the public. And unlike the Americans, the public here wants the vaccines. They're not avoiding it.
Okay.
The only problem we have here is that the American tourists come down here and they think it's okay to just have a wild party for the entire time they're here. And they bring a lot of infection with them. So I wish they would stay home, frankly.
Well, maybe they should for a little while. So what's the percentage there of vaccinated people at the moment?
Oh, I think it's around 50%.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still going on. I mean, this is not a very wealthy country, so it's been a massive effort, an expensive effort. But
yeah.
Most people, when they're offered the vaccine here, want it right away. I mean, there's no problem getting people to show up and be vaccinated. It's unlike the States.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's getting better over there, I've heard as well. So, yeah. New York's pretty good.
Well, I think you've seen some of the video of the gathering that we did here in December 2019.
Yes.
And I've been planning another one for this December, but right now I'm not entirely sure that can happen. Really depends on
nothing.
Yeah, it's hard to make any plans really with this virus because it keeps mutating, and the news is hard to keep track of, really.
Maybe give it another 2 years.
Yeah, I hope it will happen, because it was great last time, and a lot of people have been wanting to come down here, readers of my books.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see.
Okay.
I think I'm just going to let it slide for another month and then come to a decision.
Yeah. I don't know. It could be too soon, I think. But yeah, the last one was excellent. Yeah, actually today I was, I listened to your book a bit, and the 10,000 things. And then I realized really it's like I could listen to it very often. It's just because your approach is different to this. You come from kind of what I see from honesty. And I find it really rare. I was talking to John Troy the other day, and he's very similar to you. That's how I find it. And to me, it's a real pleasure, speaking to someone who really comes from their own perspective. That's how you answered some questions in this book to people during the years. What I actually like today, what my highlight was, you said it's something, I was trying to remember it. You said that people are trying to avoid physical pain, and it's kind of, you call it escapism, going to spiritual world. But you said something really beautiful, enduring what is difficult and enjoying what comes, like thoughts, feelings, and emotions, or what comes in each moment. It's basically that, that's all there is. And any spirituality that denies this is pure escapism. So can you touch base on this?
Yeah, it's totally normal for any animal to try to avoid pain and get the things it wants, food and shelter and sex and all of these things. It's just normal. And there's no reason to avoid trying to get the things that you want in the physical world. It's fine. People try to make themselves avoid that by becoming ascetic. And that makes no sense to me at all. I mean, you're here. You may as well be as comfortable physically as you can manage. If I go to bed and don't like the pillow, I can get up and try to find a better pillow and bring that to bed and get a better night's sleep. There's nothing wrong with that. If I don't like the food that I'm served, I can refuse to eat it and try to find food elsewhere that I will like better. All of that is normal and expected. But when we try to pursue that same procedure on the psychological and emotional level, we're doomed to fail, because all we can really feel is what we feel right now. And if we are not able to accept that and try to change it into something better, we'll be constantly trying to change our own emotions, which is not possible. Our thoughts and emotions are us. That's what myself is: memories, thoughts, desires, emotions, and all the rest of it. And that can't be fixed or cleaned up, in my opinion, in my experience. So when people ask me about this, what I try to tell them is, you're going to die, and you only have so many moments in a life. And to the extent that you're not able to embrace this moment, it's gone and you can never have it back again. I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, that's that was my kind of idea, how you basically, what you tried to describe. You said that the belief that suffering will cease with this message is a nonsense, which is really true, because we can't get rid of pain, obviously, thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So with thoughts, feelings, and emotions, pain is obviously there. Yeah, so as you said something about chakras, you can do whatever cleans your chakras, and that's part of the living in the world. But you're welcome to do that. But you cannot really, no one can escape from that. Like if you are born, it's your right to be born. So there is nothing really to get, isn't it, in the future?
Oh, well, I think what I meant when I said that is that we don't really need to justify our existence. I mean, no one asked to be born. Here we are. One day you just find yourself here. It happens in childhood, in early childhood, maybe about the age of 3 or 4 years old or so, you understand that you are an individual and you're here. Mm. And you never asked to be here. And so I don't see any reason for trying to justify my existence. I think I have as much right to be here as any other naturally occurring entity. And so that's part of my critique of spirituality. The idea is that I'm not good enough now because I have these desires and these, I've have anger and all the rest of it. And to be spiritual, I ought not to feel those things. I have to be better, and then I will be enlightened, or then I will be saved, or then I will be okay. And that is the opposite of what I really suggest, which is to radical self-acceptance. Radical self-acceptance is what I call this, radical self-acceptance, which simply means in each moment to love yourself and love what is here right now, because that's all that can be loved. The future is not here yet. The past can't be fixed up. So all we have is this. And when we really see that, we are awake. That's what I call awake. The spiritual teachers, a lot of them have this idea that awakening or enlightenment means some kind of self-improvement and you become perfected. And I don't agree with that. I think that awake is when you understand that this is it. And this is the only now there is. So we may as well embrace it. We have no choice, really.
Yeah. So basically, you can't do anything to improve your feelings or emotions or your thoughts. You cannot modify your thoughts as an entity. They just arise.
Well, your thoughts just arise. I wouldn't say that you can't do anything to improve them. What you can do is get involved with people and situations that promote thinking that's more useful. If someone is, say, depressed, they could go to psychotherapy. That's the work that I did for a long time. Someone may spend a year in therapy discussing her feelings or his feelings and end up feeling habitually better. And that's fine. But the point is that has to be done in the moment, not with some view to the future, not by telling oneself, if I do this for a year, then I'm going to feel better. You don't know that, and you may not feel better. And that's the point. So when I conducted a therapy, one of the features of the work, my style of work, is to keep bringing the client back into the present. How do you feel about this right now? What are you feeling now? Not what do you hope for the future? But let's be here. Let's be with our feelings and tune in to what I really think and feel, not what I should feel or hope to feel or the spiritual teacher tells me I must feel. But what do this is what I call finding your own mind. We have to find our own mind, not the mind that someone else suggests to us. But as I was saying, you can get into associations with people who can help to improve your point of view. You mentioned John Troy. He's a dear friend of mine. Spending an afternoon with John Troy will probably help to wake someone up because, as you pointed out, he's very honest and he doesn't try to be anything that he isn't. He's a very, very wise man, but he doesn't walk around pretending to be some kind of paragon of wisdom. He just speaks from the heart. And I think he and I have influenced one another in that way. About 7 or 8 years ago, I became seriously ill and realized that I could die any day, and that all I had left in this life was to be honest about, to myself and to others, about what I really feel and think. And I've been doing that now. I had been doing it anyway. I had started doing that about 20 years ago, 21 years ago. But after meeting John, I found myself wanting to do that even more because he appreciated it. And I think John feels the same way about me. After meeting me, he upped his game a little on the honesty level. So associations are very important. Someone could be hearing this conversation between the two of us, Sabine, and you are also an honest person who likes to speak about what you really think and feel. So this conversation may be beneficial to someone in that way. And that's why I engage in it. I've got nothing left to prove. I'm not trying to sell books. I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm just a guy.
As you said, what's here right now is all there is, basically. You might be reading these words and listening to this conversation, and that's what it is. So there's nothing to attain in the future. But some people imply, so-called spiritual teachers, that there is something else better than this, you know, and that's kind of delusion. But I really liked what you said also. You mentioned the screen, you know, how people go on and about the screen and watching the movie, and you are the screen. You said the screen is okay, but sometimes if it goes too much, you know, you can go wrong way, basically. You are that screen and you are beyond or something to what is. And that was my kind of experience also. I liked what you said because, you know, you are that unmovable something rather, you know, rather than what is. And it gives people some ideas that there is some way to reach where you are unmovable. Like, how do you know that? Like, I don't. So, yeah, that was a good point, I thought.
Well, thank you. The movie screen analogy comes from Vedanta, and I think it's confused a lot of people.
Yeah.
It sets up a split in the mind in which the split off part is the observer or the watcher of the movie.
Yeah.
And the movie takes place out there somewhere, projected on a screen. So now I am separate from my perceptions and thoughts. But am I separate from my perceptions and thoughts, or am I my perceptions and thoughts? See, this is a very deep question. And unfortunately, when we just accept that movie screen analogy as if it referred to something real, we gloss over all that and never really ask ourselves the serious question of who or what am I? See, that's a deep question. And if you let some spiritual teacher or some ancient book answer that question for you, you have given away your birthright. After all, you're a human being just like any other who came before you, or just like the famous spiritual teacher. They have no more knowledge than you have about who am I. Who am I is an unanswerable question. It's a question that inheres in each moment. It arises each time we consider it. There'll be a slightly different answer if we have an open mind. If the question is settled, if I say, well, I'm the observer and that's the movie, and life is not real and this is just a dream anyway, and I will live forever because there's no death, death is only an illusion, all of this nonsense, then we never really ask the question deeply. Now, all of us are looking for meaning in life. It's a natural desire to want our lives to mean something or to find something meaningful. And that's natural enough. But I don't think that meaning can be given to you from the outside. If you allow others to tell you what your life should mean or what it does mean, then you're not making that investigation for yourself, and you're only living a secondhand life, in my view. That's how I see it. And that's why I keep encouraging people to find your own mind. Don't let anyone else instruct you about who you are or what you are. Not Vedanta, not Nisargadatta, none of these people. Just when you wake up in the morning, begin there without all this weight of opinion and instruction. You're here, and it's pretty empty to just be here. You see, this is why people avoid it. This is why people want instruction and want to be told what to think and feel. Because if you just sit there, you may see that there's not much point to anything, and that there is no real meaning unless you find it. For example, right now, the meaning in my life is this conversation, and that's all. And I'm completely here, Sabine. I'm not thinking about, is there death or no death, or any of these foolish questions that can't be answered. I'm just allowing my own mind to emerge, and I'm listening to the words that are arising in the same way that you are. It's a flow. And when we begin to understand that that's an undefined flow and that nobody really knows where it came from or where it's headed, it's just like a river. We can keep watching it. And the more we do that, I find, the more we just let it flow, the more this need to find meaning everywhere will just disappear. And we'll be okay just sitting here watching the river flow. That's a Bob Dylan lyric. I'm just sitting here watching the river flow. And that's pretty much what I'm doing too, Sabine.
You don't think what you're gonna eat for like lunch today, or how you're gonna digest your food a bit later, or you're gonna have a drink or two. You're just fully here, isn't it? It's amazing.
Well, you see, this is the object of meditation practice that is enforced on people. It's to be in the moment. And what I'm saying is, why not just forget the meditation practice and cut to the chase? Here you are, right now. You don't need to do the next thing to be here. This is it. It's not going anywhere. It will always be this is it. On the day you die, on your last breath will be this is it. There's no future, really. And when we understand that, then we're free in that sense.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I've got people actually who told me how you and John Troy basically you opened their eyes in a way. They were like, they saw it all differently. They see the whole spirituality from completely different perspective by reading your book, especially the first one, The 10,000 Things, because it was really spot on. And they were like, oh my God, like it just completely changed the perception. It was disappointing in a good way. Like they were like, oh, so this is what it is. This is what it is, isn't it? There's nothing else. Like they've heard it more than once, but it didn't hit them, So when they read your book, and it just completely changed. Yeah, although I kept telling them this, but it didn't go through, I think. But yeah, this is really good. As you said before, some people might hear this, and if they're really open-hearted, they'll hear it. But also I've seen people seeing really genuine teachers. Like my teacher was truly genuine, and direct, and was pointing people back to themselves. Some of them today, they're still on the chase, so no one can do it for them if they're not open to hear what's been said. They expect, as you said before, that someone else, gives it to them. the way UG said it when Ramana said, well, can you take it? Can you take it? Even that is like, you can't give it to anyone. So you have to hear it from the heart, I presume, rather than if the wish is there, like if it's, to really hear this. Or sometimes we do get stuck through our illnesses and through psychological suffering, and we have no choice. It's like make it or break it in a way. So, yeah. Letting go maybe happens by itself.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone ever really awakens without a great deal of suffering. The suffering is the best teacher we've got, because if you suffer deeply enough, you'll realize that you cannot escape from that, and that life has suffering. And that there's not going to be this salvation where one never suffers again. I agree with you that there are some teachers who are genuine and can help people, but most of them, in my view, don't help. They confuse the issue because they will sit there talking about how great they feel now that they have awakened. You see, It's all beautiful now. And that's just not my experience. Not at all. It's not all beautiful. There's boredom, there's pain, there's worry, there's fear, and all of these things that are denied by the transcendental teachers. And the students accept that because just like some Christian who wants to be in heaven with Jesus, they want to be enlightened, imagining that once I'm enlightened, all of this ordinary suffering will just go away. And that's not the situation. That's a misunderstanding. And it's a misunderstanding that cuts through all the religions. Even Buddhism, which is probably the best of all of the religious philosophical traditions, one of the best. A lot of people imagine that the Buddha had attained a state in which he was not suffering anymore. There was no more suffering. There's an end to suffering, as it says. That's the second noble truth. But that's a misunderstanding. Because when he was asked by his sidekick, Subhuti, this is from the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha was asked, "O Great One, when you attained unexcelled perfect enlightenment, what did you attain?" And the Buddha, according to this sutra, said, "O Subhuti, when I attained unexcelled perfect enlightenment, I attained absolutely nothing. That's why it is called unexcelled perfect enlightenment." So the message there is there's nothing to attain. You attain absolutely nothing. You're in this moment, and you always will be. And as soon as that is accepted, then the suffering changes into life itself instead of this horrible disease from which I must escape. As long as we're escaping, we're going to find ways of escapism. It could be religion, it could be sex, it could be overeating, it could be drugs, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. When you're trying to escape, you're not here. And what I'm saying is, it's a very simple message. When you're willing to be here and not elsewhere, then you are fully alive. And I recommend trying to be fully alive and see what it's like. You might like it. You might like it. You see, John Troy, you mentioned, he was down here for the gathering in 2019. He and I had so much fun together. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be with another person who's just willing to be here. No big deal, nothing to prove, nothing to argue about, not trying to improve anything, just enjoying this moment and the fact of being alive, that we are this aliveness. If you can do that with another person, it's just marvelous. I mean, that's why Katanya, my wife, and I have been so happy together, because we can just sit there together, not trying to do anything, just sit in a couple of chairs, looking out at the trees and listening to the birds, and it's just marvelous. And there's nowhere to get it. We both know that one of us will die before the other, unless we're in some accident or whatever. And the other one will be left alone and grieving. But in this moment, we aren't. In this moment, which is all one ever has, we can celebrate. Even if one is in pain or sad, then you can celebrate that part of humanity, that part of being alive. To me, Sabine, this is so clear, and it's so easy, and it's so obvious. And that's what I've tried to make clear in my books. And some people have picked up on it. I hear from them, and it's great. I'm so glad that I had that to say, Sabine.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something really good about children in your book. You know, how they grow up. Say one can grow up in spiritual environment, or another one, or in religious, or another one could be in atheist, but basically they would be, their parents would put belief onto them, you know, and it wouldn't be who they are, but it would be just the belief system, not really genuine thing. So they'd be caught in those beliefs. And you said this is not about freedom. I'm talking about freedom here. And that was really that. I thought that was really good, the way you said it.
Well, it's very rare for a parent to be able to raise a child without imposing his or her beliefs on the child, because even if the parent makes an effort to avoid imposing beliefs, which is already very rare. I've known very few parents like that. Even so, the child will pick up the parent's attitudes just by observation. And so, in a sense, part of freeing oneself is to kill one's parents in the metaphorical sense. We have to understand, we have to come to understand that our parents were only people, just like us. And they had no special knowledge. They had no great insight. Their beliefs, whether they're religious beliefs or political beliefs, are not right. They're not correct. Those are just the beliefs that Mama had or Papa had. And at a certain point, we have to get off that train and say, okay, well, they had their lives. They're old people now, or they're dead and gone now. And this is my turn. This is my life. We have to, if we want freedom, we have to understand that this is a limited situation. You're going to die. You are going to die. That's what the Greek Stoics called memento mori, the recollection of death. And that's a very powerful teacher. That's a spiritual teacher right there. Or Don Juan in the Mexican Indian magician counseled, always looking onto your left shoulder, because that's where death sits, and death is your greatest advisor. And I found that to be true. Memento mori. And the other Greek Stoic suggestion was amor fati, which means love your fate. Love your fate. So what that means is, instead of saying, poor pitiful me, I wanted to be beautiful and athletic and I'm really not, as long as you do that, the poor pitiful me part, you will never fully live. When you embrace what you are and what you have, then you're alive. You're really alive. And the essence of my message is, try being fully alive and see what it's like. You may like it. You really may like it. It may be hard at first, to admit, I don't know anything, I'm really rather ignorant. This is true of all of us, the spiritual teachers included. They don't know anything. They don't know what any of this is any more than you do. And this is what U.G. Krishnamurti would say. Who are they? They don't know anything. I'm no expert on life. I'm just an older guy with a certain wisdom, and I was a psychotherapist. I learned a lot because I got to interview hundreds of people intimately and heard about their problems and their needs and desires. So that was a kind of education. But I have no inside information. No one does. We have to understand that these spiritual teachers may help you get over a certain confusion, but after you get over that confusion, you will still have to go on living and you will still have to find yourself. No one can teach you who you are. No one can. And my objection to the, especially US spiritual teaching, is these people will sit there and tell you, all you are is pure consciousness. All you are is pure consciousness. Oh, really? And you know that how? You ask them, you know that how? Or in the non-duality thing, they'll say, it's one without a second. Really? You're standing outside of all this and looking at it? How did you get out there? So you know that how? You see, we have to ask ourselves these questions when someone preaches to us. The first question that I recommend is, really? And you know that how? You know that how? And if people will keep asking that question, I think they'll get down to rock bottom not knowing. And not knowing is the wisdom place. I don't mean some overarching wisdom where you know the secrets of the universe. No, not that at all. But where you are grounded in your own being. You just hear and you don't know. You don't know where any of this is leading. You don't know what any of it means. You don't know where it came from, and you don't know where it's headed. And when we get into that position, I say, and this is only Robert, I'm not an expert, I'm only expressing my own experience. When we get into that position of not knowing and fully embrace it and understand that I don't know and I'm never going to know the secrets of the universe and no one can teach them to me. When we get into that position, we are, I am saying, as free as we ever will be. So,
yeah. It's interesting. I was actually going to ask you this, and you answered that sort of to tell me the difference between your profession, being psychotherapists and helping people. I was going to ask you, from that perspective, obviously you can help someone in a story in life, but at the same time, can spiritual person, spiritual teacher, help someone stop drinking, stop smoking, stop being a sex addict? Or do they have really those skills? Or do they have that power to help people with that, to stop being an addict, for an instance?
Yeah, well, addiction is a very big subject. There's a lot of theories about it. That's a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
If you mean, can someone, let's say, who is an alcoholic and has the habit and the need to be drunk all the time, could that habit be replaced by a better habit? Possibly. AA works for some people, and that's basically how that works. What you say is, I'm not in control of this drinking. There's a higher power, and I'll ask the higher power to help me with this. And then I'll examine my life, and I will make amends to other people and try to clean all this up. that does work for some people, but not the majority of people. The majority of people who try AA fail. I think it's maybe 10% of them that really manage to stay sober. That's nothing to sneeze at. If it helps anybody, that's great. Mm. But that's a kind of substitution of one addiction for another.
Yeah.
Whether somebody can actually be free of the need to put all the eggs in one basket, which is what addiction really is. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, my teacher himself, he used to be an addict, alcohol addict in the past, and yeah, and he like that helped him. He went to AA, but he also found a book called Second Chance, like you've got a second chance or something, that kind of made him start looking into this stuff, because after a couple of his friends ended committing suicide, he saw, it really shook him, to see that he could go that way in the end, and everything ended there. But he also said, in a way, he said everything is easier. Life is probably easier. It's not hard as before. Feelings and emotions still arise, but probably they don't have the same sting. I really liked your response to selfing. You said something like in these words that basically these probably non-dual people or their teachers, dream teachers have their dream students and who pay them dream money to come to the dream meetings. And they say basically, okay, whatever happens, it's in the dream. Like they justify anything, it's just in a dream. It's not happening to you. Like it's just in a dream. Get over it, sort of thing. And you gave example, you walk on your wife in a bed with your best friend. And I kind of really like that, because it's a good one to hit, because people can't hear this. But if you say something as powerful to people, would you like that? And how would you react? Would you be a dream, character to, kick your boyfriend's ass or something? Or how would you react? Or would you say this is just a dream?
Well, that's such a deep question.
Mm.
But, this idea that nothing really matters because all of this is just a dream, that's just nihilism in a different form. To say nothing matters is a very, very strange approach to a human life. Very strange. And it's desperate. It's a form of desperation.
Yeah.
And people cling to that idea. That's why I gave this example about some extreme situation. Would you just tell yourself, well, it's just all a dream? No, it's not really a dream. In a way, it is a dream. And I should go into that. That's kind of interesting. You see, we don't really have any idea what anything is. Mm. Our nervous system is locked up in our skulls, and it has no direct access to the world except through these sense organs. The sense organs are impinged upon by what we call energy, just a word. I mean, we don't even know what energy is exactly, but these photons and vibrations in the air are striking the eyes and the eardrums and the skin and all the rest of it as perceptions. And they're just electrical signals at that point in the nervous system. They don't correspond necessarily to what we see. What we see is a kind of movie that the nervous system has evolved to create, not to see the world as it actually is. That's not really possible. But a movie that will further our survival and reproduction. So if some vibrations strike the eye and the brain has evolved to perceive that kind of vibrations as an apple, which is edible, then I will see a beautiful apple hanging from a tree. The tree is also a brain creation. We don't really know what's there. If we go look for the tree in a scientific way, there'll be endless space between these tiny, what we call particles, and they're not even particles, they're energies, they're probability waves, as it's said lately. We don't know what anything is, but we know the movie that we have evolved to make of the world, not because it's accurate, but because it serves our survival and reproduction. So in that sense, we are all dreaming. We're dreaming a world with apples in it and other people and all the rest of it. In a sense, that's a dream.
Yeah.
But to then say nothing matters,
yeah,
that's not a recognition of this situation that I've just laid out. That is what you call a category mistake.
Yeah.
I have flipped in from one category, which is scientific, and flipped that into a suggestion for how to approach suffering, which is to say, none of it matters, it's only a dream anyway, and it will end. Yes, it will end. But does that mean that you can live your life in a sloppy way and be happy with that? That won't work for me. That won't work for me at all. Or does that mean that you can go to some spiritual lessons and have the teacher describe reality to you and just buy it and say, yep, that guy is an expert. Look how enlightened he is, and so, or she is, and I will just take that as my explanation. No, that's really sloppy. And you're just giving away your birthright. So you see, even though I know, Sabine, that this life will end and that there's nowhere to get, I do know that, as much as I know anything. Could be wrong about that too.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, people die, and the whole thing, everything that they once thought and felt, that comes to an end. It's all lost. Even though I'm aware of that, I still want to use whatever talents and understanding I have to fully live, to touch other people, to love, to have experiences. I think this is a much more positive and happy, if I can use that word, way of approaching life than to just say, oh, well, it's just a dream, nothing matters anyway. That's nihilism.
Yeah.
And the opposite place that escapists go. So nihilism is a form of escapism. To say, if nothing matters, then how about a shit sandwich for lunch? Nothing matters. You don't need peanut butter. I've got shit here. I can spread it on the bread. I don't think so. No thanks. And really, and see, that's what that comes down to. And the other pole of escapism is eternalism, where you say nothing matters because this goes on endlessly. There are many incarnations. We go around and around, and the soul never dies, and I'll be in heaven with Jesus, or whatever it is. And that's also a form of escapism. And what is being escaped from is this right now, which is the only place, I say, where anything can really matter and really, really fight. Now, someone may say, I'm not interested in that. Fine. If you're not, don't listen to me.
Yeah.
But I'm 76 years old. I'm looking into the grave after all. I won't be around much longer. And I'm saying that now. I'm saying that I'm happy and I'm free. Not because I think I will live forever, not because I think none of this matters, but because this does matter. This right now matters. It matters to me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there's nothing better than this. It can't be.
Well, it's all we've got after all. It's all we've got.
Yeah. You can run away, you know, go to a swimming pool to swim, go to the ocean, and, you know, I can enjoy here wherever it is. Doesn't have to be even the ocean, can be here. You know? These spiritual teachers, some of them, justify that everything they do is okay, right? And some of these spiritual followers, their understanding is that you're allowed to do anything now, that you are basically untouchable. That's their understanding. So I can do what I like. Spiritual teachers can do what they like. So it kind of, they see it as a bit of a anarchy to me, like, and I don't like that. I always disliked hearing, you know, that everything is justified now because there's no karma, you know, I can do what I like, and it's okay. But I think how I see it, there is a natural order, like a natural respect, something in us, which is kind of that animal instinct in us, or natural instinct, where I couldn't do something. You wouldn't go and rob a bank because you know there is no karma, you know, or you wouldn't do that. Just sleep with whoever you meet at once. Like if you are born that way, you actually mentioned DNA before. That's actually how I see it also. Maybe you have it implanted in you that you don't have a kid, you don't have, some people are narcissistic. To me, almost they're born narcissistic. It's not inherent. This is another thing I wanted to ask you, looking at it from your profession as well as this, seeing wisdom. Narcissistic people, how do you see that? Is it something people are kind of born with, or is it something that they inherit at the later stage? Or can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So that's two questions.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. But let me. Fortunately, my memory is not horribly impaired at my advanced age. I can remember to walk and chew gum. So aging is really very interesting. I guess that's the best word I can. That's the most hopeful word I can apply. It's interesting. The first question about the spiritual teachers who believe that they've transcended karma and can now do anything.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really believe in karma. I don't think it works that way. I think bad people get away with a lot. But what I think about that is that spirituality is a great hiding place for psychopaths. And a lot of spiritual teachers are psychopaths. They have been psychopaths. And they rape their students or whatever it is, and that's okay. Well, obviously it's not okay to abuse other people. It's just not okay. And it doesn't matter who you are or what your karma is like. So a lot of these teachers are simply psychopathic. A psychopath is someone who doesn't feel doesn't feel the ordinary emotions, and so cannot identify with how others are feeling. Just focused on his or her own needs and desires, and doesn't really see other people except as chess pieces to move around and abuse. So that's there have been many psychopathic spiritual teachers, many. And whether they are intelligent or know about have spiritual insights, that really has nothing to do with it. You take someone like Rajneesh, Osho, he kept changing his name, but I knew him as Rajneesh. He was that kind of psychopath. He abused a lot of his followers and students.
Mm.
And another one like that is Bubba Freejohn, raped a lot of women in front of their husbands, for example, and said it was for their spiritual benefit. No, it was for his sex kicks. You know, he was a psychopath. So we shouldn't respect these people. They're mentally ill.
Yeah.
So the other question about narcissism, we're all born with some degree of narcissism. It's part of the human mind, which means I care about myself. I love myself. I put myself above others. I think that what I do is great. This is narcissism. What happens in early childhood with the inherent narcissism depends a lot on the skill level of the parents and how they meet that narcissism of the child. So when the child expresses the narcissism in a natural way, which children must do as part of their developmental progress, the parent will meet that narcissism depending on skill level and also on that parent's own relationship to his or her narcissism. I'll give an example. A 2-year-old boy comes to daddy and says, "Papa, am I the greatest little boy in the whole world?" That's a narcissistic statement, obviously. If I said to you, "I'm the greatest man in the history of humanity," Sabine, you would say, "Wow, Robert is a narcissist. You see, he's crazy." Okay. But when the child says that,
yeah,
that's a healthy narcissism. He's beginning to inhabit himself, and he's getting a feeling for I exist. A skillful father who doesn't have his own narcissistic issues at that point might pick up the child, hold him up like this, and in a slightly mocking tone of voice, slightly, will say, "You certainly are. You're the greatest boy in the whole world." And in a kind of a burlesque.
Yeah.
Now, an unskillful father who had narcissistic problems and feared that if the child continued feeling that way, he would be foolish and people would laugh at him or not like him, might say, "Don't be ridiculous. You're just another ordinary kid." And that would be a wound, a narcissistic wound that's inappropriate at that age and stage, and would wound the child so that later that child might become narcissistic in a wrong way, always trying to get over this deep wound that the father had inflicted upon him at the age of, say, 2. I don't know if I'm making this clear. Does that make sense to you, Sabine?
It's pretty good, yeah. Really good.
You see, we are all wounded by our parents in one way or another, and that's what we have to get over. Not everyone needs psychotherapy to attain that. Many of us can just naturally come to understand, yeah, mama hurt me and papa hurt me in this way or that way. If it hadn't been for them, I might have been much better at my life or been famous or whatever the desire might be. We can get over that naturally, or we go to someone like me and we work through this, where you see, I might, in the case I've given you, that's a common case in in psychotherapy where you have a narcissistic patient and you work with that person, maybe over a period of a year or two, where you gradually accept that person's narcissism and hold it, and then slowly give it back to them, and so that they actually see, yeah, that's kind of inappropriate. We're all in the same boat here. There's no greatest human in the world after all. We're all people. And that will be a kind of healing. One of the things I've pointed out, I don't know if I've pointed it out in either of my two books, but I have in other writing, I'm sure. Just as I said, psychopathy is prevalent among spiritual teachers because spirituality is a good hiding place for psychopaths. It's also a great hiding place for narcissists. These people who say, I'm fully enlightened. You see, that's a totally narcissistic statement. It's absurd. When I say I find myself awake, which I have said, I'm not making a claim to be above other people or having attained anything. I'm just describing the condition I'm in, which is all of this is arising. I hear the words coming out, but I don't know where they're coming from. I'm not making them. I don't know what I'm going to say next. It's all just arising. I'm here, but I'm not doing it. There is no doer of any of this from my perspective. And I call that being awake. Other people have criticized it and said, Robert, that's not really what awake is. Awake is when you realize that the universe is all one, non-duality. Well, I think that's nonsense. I think awake is when you just simply understand that you're not the doer and you don't know if it's all one or if there's a million universes and they're all separate. You have no way of knowing that. Then the multiverse, there could be an infinity of universes and it's not all one. This is just one little bubble in a vast infinity of bubbles. And the bubbles come into being. This is actual scientific theory, the multiverse. The bubbles keep just arising and bubbling up, and then they burst. And when they bubble up, like bubbles in a can of mineral water, when they come to the surface, a universe appears. When the bubble pops, the universe goes out of existence. We may be living in the multiverse, or this may be a simulation on someone's computer in the far future. We just don't know that. We have no way of knowing it. And that is my critique of non-duality, folks. Give it a rest. It's a non-starter. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. And I've seen people hypnotized by it, deeply hypnotized by this. And it's sad to see. It really is.
It is.
Oh, well, that's quite a statement. And I have friends I know who are hypnotized that way. And I feel for them. They may be happy with it, and if they are, okay.
Yeah.
But it cuts off communication because once you adopt a belief like that, it's really hard to communicate with ordinary people who don't see it that way.
Yes, I've got the same issue, I think. And yeah, they're excellent in repeating the hypnotism, but it's and you know, because you just know it. I know you know it. When someone talks crap, like they can act for themselves, but I don't see what the point is, or I don't understand how come they can't see it for themselves. Like you keep saying the same thing since I saw you first time, just more like they've learned so much. And since day one, I remember a few months into this, 3-4 months into this, I realized I knew nothing, but I laughed about it. I couldn't stop laughing. It was such a relief to me that I knew nothing. And I would occasionally even say that I was stupid and laugh. And people would just go, oh, you're not stupid, trying to be supportive. And I'd laugh even more. I'm just nothing, you know, even at work at times, because I knew they didn't know what I was talking about. As a joke, I would say like I was nothing. And I would just go, oh, no, you're not nothing. You're but so good. Just said how the nature plays with us, with our minds, you know, and we can't do anything. You just go, see, these people can't do anything. I could have been one of those, you know. And yeah, and people believe in lineages also, like I'm a part of lineage. And oh, it's good for my spiritual CV, for my non-dual CV. I'll put in my resume that I'm part of lineage, you know, I'll get more followers. And I'm so, one day you might become like me, you know, and this is what you're hearing. And you go, what can you do? And these people teach, they said, and they tend to teach these narcissistic people. Why I brought up this subject, because I find that narcissistic people, spiritual narcissistic people, actually love teaching, love preaching. People who are genuine, they don't teach.
Well, I don't think there is a lot of honesty in it, and no. That's why it can't be found. There is some. I won't write off the entire thing. I'm not a U.G. Krishnamurti, but I'm close to it, though. But, I mean, he wrote off the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just said it was all nonsense. I don't quite go there, because I have met some people who would call themselves teachers, who I respect.
Yeah.
One person, you know, that comes to mind is Tom Thompson.
Yeah.
He's a really great guy, and
yeah.
He would call himself a spiritual teacher, I think. But for the most part, it's what you said, it's an industry and there's money to be made. And when you have a product, you want that brand to have a good reputation. And so you won't say things that are hard to accept, because if you do, you may lose followers. And if you lose followers, your income goes down, and that's not successful. That's not a good business, to be losing customers.
Yeah.
So the customer's always right. And that's an industry.
Yeah.
When you have someone like a John Shaw you've mentioned, that person is not trying to gain favor with you. He has no interest in doing that. He doesn't need to do it. His income doesn't depend on it. And he's not narcissistic, so he doesn't need to be popular. He'll just say it as it is. Say it like it is. I think I'm someone like that. I had this awakening experience long ago, back in the 80s. And when it first occurred, I kept questioning myself, is this really what all these people have been talking about? Is this awakening? It took me 3 or 4, no more, it took like 6 or 7 years of thinking about it, reading about it, because I had not been a big reader of spiritual books. I'd read some, but I was more interested in other things. I had a photography career at the time, and I was really deeply involved in that. Eventually, I came to accept that, yes, I'm really awake in this world. It does happen. It's not that common, but people do actually awaken in a deep sense. But I didn't speak about it for 20 years or more, no more, maybe 25 years. Then I slowly began to introduce that theme into some, well, I should go back. I had a website that wasn't about spirituality. It was basically an online brochure for my therapy practice. But people began sending me questions, and I replied to them on the web page. And that web page became really popular. It's had, I think, 5 million views, and it's been read all over the world. I don't keep it up anymore, so it's probably not as popular as it once was. but my answers to questions were about sexuality and narcissism and all the rest of this. But now and then I would get a question that I could answer from a more kind of awakened point of view, and I did that. And so that basically oozed out into the world. And finally, a couple of people I trusted, John Troy was one of them, and the other was Dr. Robert K. Hall, the late spiritual Buddhist teacher, kind of urged me to go public with this. And so I have, but not because I think I know anything, but because they said that my point of view was useful and that it ought to be heard. And I think that's where I am with it now. I've gotten a bit lost here. You'd said something, I thought I was replying to it, but I got lost in my personal history, which probably is just a swamp at this point.
No, this is great, actually, because I was going to ask you about your photography. I wanted to mention that as well, I've forgotten. Basically, I find it's really big thing because you were very kind of popular in New York. I even know people from here who followed you, right? Your photography, and it's really something I haven't seen before. Like I really get stunned by your, like your work. But you said there was so much pressure in that. From my perspective, like I would imagine to do something you really love doing, so creative, but then you still get sucked in, in that competition or whatever it is at the time. If you did it now, like if you went back to New York and had and started all over again, could you probably see it from this different perspective, just from the enjoyment of having your pictures on this display and stuff, like having people coming in, having a look at your pictures? I presume you would see it from different perspective today. And would it be the same for you? Like, could you see yourself doing it again or no?
Oh, what a question. What happened is after the awakening, I tried to continue with my career. It was a pretty hot art career. I had a lot of New York exhibitions. I had an agent. I had works in a lot of important publications and museums. And I found that it was becoming increasingly hard to be around all those people. I was having to drink too much to attend the openings of my exhibitions. I didn't like the people I was meeting. What happened is, just on the eve of an important exhibition, there was a book of my photographs, and it was to go along with this exhibition, and it was going to be a big deal. I became ill. I became too ill, and the whole thing had to be called off. And during that illness, which was really, I was really terribly ill. I was delirious a lot, and night sweats, and all this. Well, I consulted a naturopath, a guy about 10 years younger than me, a young guy. I was young at the time, in my 40s. He was taking my history and looking into my eyes. And what I saw coming out of his eyes was this profound compassion. And Sabine, it was like a voice in my head. It wasn't a real voice, but it was as if I heard these words. words were, "This is what you should be doing, Robert." And I knew right then it didn't mean that I should be doing naturopathy. It meant that I should be doing compassion, not being this famous photographer who was involved in all these kind of scams in the art world. The photography was great, producing the work was great, but selling it is not great. It wasn't great for me. So at that point, I pretty much dropped out of photography. I went back to school, got a PhD in psychology, which was easy for me because I had always had an interest in psychology anyway, and had done a lot of the necessary reading anyway. So I got the PhD in a couple of years, and I opened my practice, and I've never regretted that. Never regretted that. And about 10 years ago, I went back to photographing again, and I've produced a lot of work since then, and I really love it. I posted on my Facebook page, and that seems good enough. I've been offered a couple of exhibitions by people. David Zuckerman, who died of AIDS, is it last year? It was last year, died of AIDS, wanted to arrange an exhibition for me in LA. And I turned him down. So I don't think I would go back to that again. I just don't want to be in that world. At this point in my life, I would just like to do the photographic work without hustling it at all. And when people give you exhibitions, well, they have to make a living doing it. So you have to collude in that. And really, I'd rather not. So that's a long answer, I guess, to your question, Sabine.
Well, it makes sense. I get it. Yeah. And I understand when you say you didn't resonate with these people anymore. It's like me not being able to communicate with office people much. So much that I left actually my office work. I just can't do it anymore. I was really struggling. I tried to do it. So I went back to 3 years ago and I thought, no, I just can't do it. So I'm just doing something completely different for physical health, personal training and stuff. And when someone from the office says, like, you've done a great job, if they praise me, like, I feel nothing, I feel like, don't even say it, I don't care what you think about me, like, it doesn't do anything for me. But when someone says you inspire me, you motivate me, as with personal training, my heart is there, I think. Maybe because of myself, not being so well physically lately. And I know there are some people who might need help with that from that perspective. I feel I'd rather, help people with poor health or something rather than office, like frigid work. So yeah, it's interesting, and that you got into psychotherapy, and I really like that combined with the message, with the wisdom, because when I hear you talk to me like not only from wisdom, but you talk as someone who really knows what they're talking about from both perspectives. Basically, because I still believe, I've been told by some teachers that basically you should completely neglect or drop anything to do with psychology. I don't see it that way. To me, people in the world, they need help, especially in this lockdown. They need someone to listen to them. And there are people who are good listeners. And they obviously trained for that. They've been trained for that. So for me, I don't dismiss psychology or psychotherapy. I think it's quite useful.
To dismiss every form of knowledge, like psychotherapy, like science, is the action of a cult leader. Like Scientology is an example. They said, you don't need psychotherapy, what you need is Scientology. And they've got this one-size-fits-all ladder that you climb, and you pay for each stage, and you eventually go clear, and you become an operating Phaeton and all of this. That's just a cult.
Yeah.
And they have to deny that these other helping professions exist because those are the competition. And it's really as simple as that. There's good and bad psychotherapists. I'm not whitewashing the entire profession, but a lot of the ones I've known have been really great people. Tom Thompson is an example of that. He's a trained therapist who worked in mental hospitals for years. And when he and I speak about these matters, I feel the goodness coming from his heart, that he really genuinely wants to help people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to help people in a sense, but not, I don't think I really have much power to help them.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. I don't think I can wave a magic wand and enlighten anyone or fix anyone's life. It doesn't work that way.
No.
I've criticized by name. I won't do that anymore. I've just gotten too much pushback. I'm tired of defending that. But I have named them in the past, so people can look back on some of my videos and you'll hear these names.
Yeah.
Spiritual teachers, what they do is they get one of their audience members and kind of victimize that person. The person comes up to the microphone to ask a question, and the techniques and skills of the spiritual teacher are like psychotherapy, and the person ends up standing there crying and weeping about my life, and they're at the microphone exposed.
Yeah.
But there's not the skills of a psychotherapist to put that person back together again so they can go out on the street. They just, okay, you're busted up now, let's get the next case. And I've been horrified by that.
Yeah, same.
Yes, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I should say something else. I didn't know you were ill, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope it's nothing too serious.
No, it's not. It's okay. Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
You plan to be around a little longer?
Oh, yeah.
It's good, because I'll miss you when you go. Assuming that you go before I do.
We don't know, and that's okay.
It's a ship of fools. I mean, we never know when the next one will be thrown overboard. You know, it's burial at sea on this ship.
I don't mind.
No, it's funny. It's funny, though, because we make such a big deal about our own death. I mean, it's this sword hanging over. And yet, when another person dies, it's just ordinary. It's just routine. Oh, yeah, he died last week. Oh, well, throw him overboard.
Just cross me over.
Yeah. And, you know, we justify it. Life is for the living. Oh, yeah, that's right.
And for dying, too. So it's
it's like at a funeral. After everybody's eating, first thing they want to do is eat and then go home and have sex, you know, just prove to myself that I'm a living animal. I'm not dead.
And just in case I die tomorrow.
Yeah, it's really like a joke.
Yeah, it's okay. It's no more pain, sir.
Unless you have more questions, maybe on that. That, we should call it a day.
We should call it. That's enough, probably. Yeah.
It's been such fun speaking with you, Sabine.
Me too. It was really good as always. So yeah. Thank you for this, Robert, again. So wishing you all the best to you in Catania, and we'll be in touch. So
thank you so much, Sabine. Be well there in the winter in Melbourne.
Yes. Yeah. You too in summer.
Lockdown conditions. Boy, that doesn't sound like much fun.
No.